I think at this point, we'd like to invite
Look at this
and
hot
welcome
dress, too.
Lynette Lewis. Thank you. Get on up there. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. I can't wait to hear more from you all at the panel. It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
We are going to
So
grab our...
my clicker here.
We're going to get out of your way.
Absolutely. Look at us. We walked
We
up with
walk
them and
around
we didn't
and
even
didn't
open
even
them. We didn't even open them.
You didn't need them. You didn't need the script. Well, ladies, welcome. Welcome to both the audience that is here and those that are watching worldwide. What a privilege that we can all gather together on International Women's Day. Congratulations to Cisco and to Citibank for joining forces. Congratulations to you and everyone that's watching this morning for making time out for yourself to come together. There are over 1,200 organizations that are celebrating International Women's Day this year. Isn't that amazing? And we get to be part of one. I never take it for granted. My husband and I travel around the world a lot, and there are so many women that would give anything to be right here today with us. So what a privilege it is. I'm excited to share a little bit with you this morning, some of the concepts from my book, but also some of the stories from my own life. You know, when we think about certainly the women that are featured here in the room, so many of the pioneers, we think of Blair and Debbie and the rest of the panelists, and all of us really have a story, don't we? A story of pioneering and what brought us here today. It's been my great privilege to be an author, something that I never really expected to become. But let me remind you that the greatest story is the one that your life is writing right now. Isn't it so tempting often to look at someone who's on a stage or maybe speaking somewhere, or certainly we look at television or the World Wide Web and we see women who their stories are being told, but we forget that it's really our own story that has the power to make our life rich and sweet and fulfilling. And I just want to encourage you that as you're writing your own story right now where you are, keep being excited and motivated and encouraged about what's to come. Your story may not ever get officially published, but you're writing it, and someone in this world is going to get inspiration and power and encouragement from your story. It's a real privilege to share with you a little bit about my own story this morning. We're going to cover this concept of the power of purpose, and I'd like to share with you just briefly a little bit about what brought me to loving this concept of the power of purpose. Actually, the power of purpose, I would call, was really a life raft for my life at two very specific junctures. The first was this. Maybe some of you will relate to this. I went to college and honestly figured that I would meet my husband in college. Now, I was not only going to college for my MRS degree, as they call it, but I just figured that I would probably meet him in college. I'm a very visionary person, and I had my life planned out. I was going to go meet my husband in college, get married probably my senior year or 1 year after. By the age of 30, I would have my 3 children, 2 girls and 1 boy. I was a television major, so I would be the next Barbara Walters or whoever I would aspire to be at that point. As life and stories go, there are many surprises along the way, are there not? Well, my surprise was that I did not meet my husband in college. So I was graduating. I thought, well, this will be good. You know, I can work a year or two. The kind of man I want to marry is going to appreciate an independent kind of woman. And meanwhile, now my very best friend who I met in college, her name is Tony. She's from Houston, Texas. Within the first year, Tony started living my dream. She met and married her husband, David. Tony and I are now both the same age. We both are turning 51 this year. Tony has 10 children. Yes, I know. She has been my fruitful friend. All natural born, no twins, one by one. So I'm now getting into my late 20s and into my 30s, still no husband in sight. Tony just keeps having baby after baby. And she, of course, as you can imagine, loves having babies. And she would call me on the phone and she would go, Lynette, I have news. Well, I knew what the news was. I was getting very familiar. And every time she would have a baby, I would think to myself, I am falling so behind. You ever had that? Something in your life that's just not going the way we plan. So meanwhile, all my other friends are getting married as well. Now I'm having this career and I'm appreciative. You ever have those moments where you're maybe frustrated about something, but then you kick yourself. You think, well, I should be so grateful. I've got this good job, and I would tell myself that. And I was enjoying my career. I was grateful for it. I was making different moves, as they said, not a straight line, but around the path, the lattice, as we say. But I was probably getting close to 30 when I really thought, okay, if I'm not having marriage and my personal life right now is not going the way I want it, then I've got to find a deeper reason for why I'm here. And purpose, this concept of purpose, started becoming my mantra, my passion. Okay, my purpose is not just to get married and have kids. My purpose is bigger than that. And that was the first juncture where this concept of purpose really started mattering to me. The second juncture in my life was in my late 30s. Now I had made the move to New York City. I was working for Deloitte & Touche in New York City in marketing there down on Wall Street in the World Financial Center. And 9/11 happened. And I can remember distinctly the day I was walking through the Marriott Hotel in Times Square. All of us had been dispersed into different locations because our offices had been very chaotic through the tragedy. And I remember the hallway I was walking down one day. I'm walking down that hallway and I'm thinking, my bosses really don't care about what's in my heart. They're busy. They've got their agendas. Who really at this organization knows what's deepest in my heart, what I dream of doing, and who I want to become? And I knew nobody really has time to pay attention. Do you ever have those feelings? You drive in, ever have those Monday mornings, maybe it is, you're driving in, fighting traffic, and you think, why am I doing this anyway? Am I the only one? You think, why am I doing this? Well, purpose is the answer to the question why. And at those two junctures, now that I look back and I'm the age I am, I realize that some of the decisions I began to make at those ages were what really started deepening my sense of fulfillment in life. Purpose, I want to give you two definitions this morning. Purpose, as it's defined by Webster's Dictionary, you'll see it here on the screen, is a result or effect that is intended or desired. It's an intention. Another way to put it is, purpose answers the question why. A lot of answers to the question why. Why am I here in the earth? Big question. Why am I here at this organization right now? Why am I here in this role? All the answers to the question why give us clues and answer that sense of what is my purpose in life. When I started asking the question why and discovering those answers for my deeper reasons, not just why am I the senior marketing leader of Deloitte & Touche, why am I here, bigger level, I started feeling this sense of purpose and meaning came deeper into my heart. The second term that I always like to define in the context of this discussion is that mission answers the question what. Now, most of us, in my experience, will spend more time on the what's than the why. We have many missions in life. Each one of us here, each one of us listening today, many missions. Missions are what you do. The mission to be a good mom, to be a great worker, to be an excellent sister or daughter or multiple roles that we have, serving in the community, all that you all do every day. You're so busy, you're so engaged. Many missions, but one central purpose. And your purpose will answer the question why you're doing all those things. So as I started plugging into this concept, it really started giving me a greater sense of destiny and mission and fulfillment, really, which fulfillment is such an elusive thing. But I believe answering the question why helps us get to deeper fulfillment. It really is about finding our why, our unique why, and purpose is unique to every person. I do a lot of workshops where I'll run people through a whole 3 hours of really writing a personal purpose statement. First chapter of my book, if you've seen it, is all about how do you write a purpose statement? How do you get to that why and really figure out that why? And there's some very cognitive ways to do that. I encourage you to do that. It's empowering, it's powerful. But finding our why is really just by starting to ask the question why. I'll never forget, I was in a meeting one day with a partner I was working for. I was his marketing manager, leader at Deloitte. And he sat me down and he said, Lynette, I want to do a team meeting for our team. I want to really talk about the revenue numbers for our division, and I'd really like to bring everybody together. Now, I was just starting to dig into some of these concepts. Why? So I thought, well, I'm going to experiment with this. And I said, tell me for a minute, we can do that meeting, you know, I'm happy to help. Why do you want to really have this meeting? Why do you want this meeting? And he sat back and he said, you know, I really feel people have been working hard. We've had some layoffs. I feel like they need motivation. I feel like they're not really engaged. I feel like we need to create a sense of teamwork. And as he's telling me the why, I'm realizing that this meeting is not just about the numbers. This meeting is not just about an agenda where, and you all have been in these meetings, right, where the leaders get up and one person after another speaks about the cognitive bottom lines. If we're trying to motivate everybody, then let's plan some team building moments and let's get some personal stories in there. And so I started crafting a meeting that was going to really achieve the why behind the meeting. And his face lit up, and then we had the meeting, and everybody was motivated, and we left with a whole different result because we started by asking the question, why? Another scenario in my life that really validated this whole asking the why questions was I was named to be president of a board in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where I'd lived for about 20 years. It was called Leadership Tulsa. Now, frankly, I was one of the youngest women to ever become president, and I was very intimidated by this board. High-level board, very renowned leaders in the city. And I'm thinking, these men and women ought to be teaching me. Here I'm the president of the board. How do I engage them? How do I really have something to offer? Well, I'd been doing a lot of pondering and reading and studying about this concept of why. I also knew that we had a tenure problem, or we had a attendance problem, where a lot of people would start first meeting or two of the year and then they'd dwindle off and we'd have lack of board attendance. It was just tough to get busy people to come out. So I thought, I'm going to experiment with this board. And by the way, experimentation is one of the greatest tools for innovation. Just like Debbie was saying, experiment, taking chances. Why not try something? And so the first board meeting of the year, I had everyone go around that boardroom. There was probably about 25 board members. And I said, I want us to start the board year with everyone articulating why you're on this board. Just answer the question why. Why are you here? We know why we're here as an organization. We know why the community needs us, but I want to know why you're here. So person by person, we went around the room, and I just started taking notes. Interestingly, one guy was on the board because he was new to the community. His boss told him to get on this board. He didn't even know about the organization. He said, I guess I'm here to make new friends. We went down the row. Everyone had a very different answer on why they were there. Do you know throughout that whole year, I kept track of that sheet of why they were there, and I would write them little emails through the month. How are you doing on this? Is this working for you? I've got an idea. We've got a project. Would you serve with me on this committee? I think it may help you in the reason why you're here. Going back and reminding people why they were there. Then we did a half-day board retreat where we just spent time digging into their whys. Do you know we had the best attendance that year that we'd ever had in that organization? Why? Because it was connected to the why. I would encourage you to, when you're in a group, especially if you work with volunteers in any organization, you really need to know why people are there. Because now they're not there for the paycheck, they're not there for the promotion. But even when we are, we need to know why we're here, and purpose gets us there. Then, after we get a sense of why we're here, then we start asking, what do I want? Now, what do I want is really about your dreams. Your dreams. See, when my dream of marriage was on hold, I figured out I better get going on some other dreams, right? That dream is not happening. My theory is when one dream's on hold, go live another. Tony is home changing diapers while I'm living in New York City, going to Broadway shows and wearing stilettos and do it. Isn't it true that other people, we can so often look at other sides of the proverbial fence and say, oh, the grass is greener over there. But we have the ability to do our dreams in a different fashion. And so I just got about doing my dreams. My theory is dream on all cylinders is what I call it. Get in touch with the dreams of your heart. I always say too, dream outside the job description. Dream beyond the job description. So I'm working at Deloitte and in a senior marketing role, and I had this desire to maybe do more speaking. I wasn't getting paid to be a speaker like I am now. I wasn't speaking a lot around the country. I was doing some things through my church and other organizations, but not in a paid way. And I just had this desire to be able to speak more. Wasn't on my job description. And by the way, my purpose statement, which is to inspire and motivate people to know their purpose and live their dreams, big on inspiring and motivating, nothing on my job description had any words inspire and motivate. But my dream had that in it. And I really thought, I wonder if I could do something more at the firm that could help me really further this dream I have of being a speaker. Coinciding with that was my study of this concept of purpose. And so one day, one of my friends who'd moved over from consulting into HR comes by my cubicle and he's like, "What are you working on, Lynette? What have you been thinking about?" I said, "I've got this idea, Jeff. I have this theory. You know, the firm is all about retention and keeping employees and recruiting the best and the brightest. I've got this theory that if we could get our entire workforce in tune with their life purpose and then create a connection strategy between their purpose and their job and all that the firm affords them for career development, I believe our retention would go up. Because people would feel connected. Now they know their purpose, they understand the firm, and they feel that sense of connection. That's my dream. I want to see that happen." He said, "You know, that's very intriguing. I want you to sit down with the HR director and let's talk about it." So we sat down with the HR director for all the Northeast and we talked about it. And he said, "That's very interesting. I like it." He said, "How would you do it?" Now, the whole time I'm sitting there, as Debbie referenced, I'm thinking, I have no qualifications for this. I had not at all even thought of writing a book at this point. I'm just a marketing person in marketing, but it's my dream, and I'm talking about it. And sometimes I've found, just keep talking about the dream. Talk it out. Let it evolve as you're talking, because that's what dreaming is all about, dreaming out loud. And so we start describing this, and he says, "Well, how about if, Lynette, would you be willing to pilot something like this?" And I said, "Sure." You always say sure when someone asks you if you'd want to try something with a dream. That's always the answer, sure. So he said, "Let's put it together. How would you do this? And why don't you team up with the person in HR?" And so, you know how you know when it's a dream you need to do? Is you can't sleep at night. Every one of us needs at least 2 or 3 dreams, maybe just one. And when you start moving towards that dream, you can't sleep. The juices are flowing. Ever have that? We need more of that in our careers, don't we? We need more of those moments where we see that our dreams are coming alive and they're getting activated. So now I went home that night, I'm thinking, oh, I could do this and we could do that. Then I had to go talk to my boss. Because I was going to do this, we decided we would do it on a Friday morning for a couple hours every other week for about 6 weeks. All an experiment, all just innovation, just innovating outside the job description. So I went to my boss, and my boss said, "No way," with a smile on his face, of course. "I can't do it, Lynette. You're too busy. You know what we have going on. You're one of my top performers. I need you on this marketing stuff. I don't think this is going to work." Now, when you are told no and it is a dream, don't take no for an answer, right? So I went back and I started figuring out, and I came up with this value proposition, this win-win. I said, how about if I do it this way, and I'll do evenings and weekends, and it won't impact my job, but I'll bring you in, you can see how it's going. And he said, sure. At the end of the day, he couldn't say no. And that's a whole other story in itself. We got to experiment, and you know what? My love for Deloitte and Touche was just going higher and higher and higher, right? Not because I got a pay raise, not because I had the best boss in the world. He was great, but it wasn't about the boss. It wasn't about the projects. It was about using the firm to do my dreams. And thus began my passionate journey to dreaming outside the job description. Now, yes, some days it bugged me that I was not married. I'm thinking, boy, my biological clock is blaring at me. But when you're doing your dreams, the dreams that are on the back burner don't matter quite so much. And when you realize that your job is giving you a catalyst to doing your dreams, there's satisfaction and there's fulfillment. And talk about empowerment and engagement, that's what happens. One day out of that whole program, someone comes up to me and says, we're doing an event with our women's initiative, Lynette. Could you do a workshop perhaps on personal branding? I'm thinking, I've never spoken on personal branding. I'm not sure what, I was like, of course I could. I'd love to do that. So we got together. I did all my research on personal branding, did a workshop. 2 people showed up, by the way, for my workshop. Yes, 2 people came. I was a little embarrassed, but I thought, hey, better to have 2 than 20 and flub it up, right? So I did my personal branding. Is one of the topics I talk on the most all over the world now, because it started as a dream and it became a process of innovation. What dreams are in your heart this morning? What dreams would you love to pursue that your job, your role, your opportunity right now affords you the privilege to do your dreams? Here's what happens when we do that. We take purpose, the why, we add it to dreams, what we want to do, and fulfillment is the result. Fulfillment, the fulfillment factor, up and up and up and up and up, like a rising tide of joy and pleasure and success at the deepest levels of our heart. So, what holds us back? What keeps us from doing our dreams, following the purpose of our hearts? What holds us back? Well, there's many things that hold us back. We could talk about that for another hour, but I'm going to give you what I call the 3 Ds that hold us back. And perhaps you'll relate to some of these. The first, delays. Is anybody in here naturally patient? If you are, I need you as my personal coach. I am not a patient person. I'm the one who goes to Walmart or whatever store I'm at. I eye from the back. Which line is going to be the quickest? He looks slow. She looks a little disheveled. I'm going for this one. And then I get in. I do it at the airport, too. And then I stand there and I think, can she get her act together? I mean, I hate to admit it, but I'm impatient. That's why my journey of singleness was so frustrating to me. Because I would think, good grief, if I just knew who I was going to spend my life with, I could get this part of my life figured out. But I didn't know, and it was delaying. I actually finally met my awesome, amazing husband at the age of 42. We got married. Met him in New York City. And on our wedding day, he gave me the gift of 4 teenage boys. Thank you for laughing. You're understanding what my journey has been. And I always tell Tony that 4 kids and no stretch marks is a really good deal. She agrees. So he gave me this wonderful gift of 4 boys. But, you know, on our wedding day, and since then, we've been married almost 9 years now, I'm just so glad that I dreamed in the midst of the wait and in the midst of the delay. Delays are not fun. Now, here's what the temptation is when we come up against a delay. First, we often tend to take it personal. This isn't happening, something's wrong with me. Oh, I had more helpers trying to help me find a husband all those years. Well, what are you really looking for? Well, you're too picky. Well, then I started speaking a lot. They'd be like, you're too bold. You need to tone it down a little, Lynette. I mean, what guy's going to be able to handle you being out? Anybody relate? Maybe not in the marriage area, but in the career area, right? People trying to tell us why. And we take it personal when we face a delay. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. Maybe I need to fix this or whatever. Well, maybe so. I'm always open to input. I became, as what I would affectionately call, the blind date queen. I mean, I added it up one year. I thought, I feel like I've been on a lot of blind dates. Maybe it's just me, but I added it up. I figured I'd been on 65 at that point. Obviously, it was not going well for me. But I kept on moving, kept on doing, not learning to not misinterpret the delays. Now, let me ask you a question. When you run into a stop sign, you're driving, you run into a stop sign, what do? You stop, right? Of course. Then what do you do next? You look both ways, exactly. And then what do? Then you go, correct? We stop, we consider, and then we go. Stop signs are not dead-end signs. And even dead ends. Who parks at a dead-end sign? What do we do at a dead-end sign? Turn around and go in. Let's start doing that with our delays. After I'd been speaking for a while, someone said to me, Lynette, in fact, it was when I started working with John Maxwell. They said, we really think you ought to write a book. It'd be good for you to have a book. If you want to be a speaker, you want to do this more, you've got things to say, people like what you say, we think you ought to write a book. I thought, I don't know how to write a book. Stop sign. Then they said, well, you need to get a literary agent. They'll help you get a book. And I thought, I don't know any literary agents. Stop sign number 2. Then they found me a literary agent. The literary agent says, you need to have a book proposal. I don't know how to write a book proposal. And when will I find the time to write? Stop sign number 3. She said, well, I know somebody, they'll write the book proposal. It'll cost you this much. Stop sign number 4 and 5. And before long, we got the agent, got the book proposal. Do you know, we sent that book proposal out, and within 2 weeks, we had a book deal. Because that publisher had been looking for 2 years for the exact kind of voice and platform that my book proposal included. See, your dream is what someone else is looking for, but we will never know it if we stop at the first stop sign. When my book came out, it was published. It was a privilege. There were many people who have long stories of getting published. I was very privileged to have that happen. So my book was coming out, and I thought, you know, it'd be very cool, this book, Climbing Ladder in Stilettos. I love high heels. I love fashion. I thought, I'm going to get a retailer to sponsor my book tour. This will be great. Saks Fifth Avenue or Bloomingdale, they'll sponsor my book tour. I'll wear all their stilettos. It'll be so fulfilling, and it'll be a win-win, you know, and I'll talk about, right? You get these ideas, right? I'm an innovator, I'm a dreamer. So I started talking to a couple of them, Saks and Bloomingdale's, and went, no, thank you. We're not in. Many stop signs, many stop signs. I thought, totally felt insecure. Of course they're not going to do it. I'm an unknown author. Oh, you ever get in those downward spirals of your discouragement? Yeah, I'm an unknown author. Oh man, I bet nobody's even going to read this book. Oh, I bet it's not even going to be a good book. Oh no, I mean just downward spiral, right? When we run into the delays. Do you know about 6 months after the book came out, I had decided to take a break from Deloitte and go out on my own so that I could do more speaking and travel now that my book was out. And this was right about the time when I got married, so I had my new children, and life was big transition, so I made a change and left Deloitte. So Deloitte, all my girlfriends at Deloitte call me up and they go, Lynette, we know your book's coming out. We want to do an event with you. Do you have any ideas for the event? Do you have any suggestions? I said, how about if we do the event at Saks Fifth Avenue? In fact, why don't you call them and see if they would be willing to host the event? Great idea. They called. Saks was like, yes, as a matter of fact, we have a brand new woman. She's in charge of corporate outreach. Why don't you come in? So I went into their high designer shoe department, went around and picked out my shoes and used them as examples on how to build a platform and how to love the shoes you're in. You know, I showed a wedding shoe and I showed a corporate shoe. I said, just my friend's wearing this wedding shoe, but I'm with, and I just made it up as I went. The women loved it. Saks loved it. They came to me afterwards and they said, we're going to pull out our whole corporate list. Let's get together and figure out how we can collaborate. And do you know, since then I've spoken at Saks Fifth Avenues all over the country because the delay didn't mean that it was a bad idea. But at the time, it feels like a big red flag. When you run into your stop signs, keep moving because your delay doesn't mean that it's the end. The next thing that we run into is what I call denials. Haven't I had denials in my career? Oh boy, I've had jobs I went out for that I was the perfect person for the job, and they gave it to somebody else. My biggest story that I reference when I think about denial is after I married my husband, I wanted to have a baby. Of course I did. And so we tried, and at the age of 45, I got pregnant. I was ecstatic. Couldn't believe it. envisioning my beautiful little blonde girl. 2 months later, I had a miscarriage. Some of you, I'm sure, have been through it. It's not fun. And that denial, as I call it, plunged me into some of the greatest grief of my life. Days when I didn't know how I'd get out of bed in the morning. Then it thrust me into a whole series of medical issues and all kinds of doctors and complications and everything for the next several years. At the same time, right about the same time, I started learning from a young woman that I was working with in New York about the issue of child sex trafficking. I'm sure in the last couple of years it's been talked about a lot, but I learned that the U.S. is the #1 destination for trafficked children now. And I was horrified by this. It kept me up at night. I would talk to my husband, I don't know how I'm going to deal with this. I would thought about my little niece. It was just one of those things that just started tormenting me in the midst of having my own grief. And one morning we woke up and my husband Ron said, why don't we do something? Let's just do something. You've got a platform, I've got a platform. Let's just figure out what we could do. See, I have a theory that a dream in motion attracts provision. And when you put your dream in motion, not knowing how, you get know-how when you move forward, not knowing how. That's how it works. And so we just decided, I said, okay, let's do something. And we were reading an article. My husband was reading a women's magazine one day at the health club. It was the only magazine in the car, and he kind of turned the cover back and started reading the article. And it was about a woman who had done tremendous innovative things through the State Department for sex trafficking. And he said, wonder if we know someone who knows her. And sure enough, one of our friends knew her. Within 2 days, we were on the phone with her. And within 2 months, we were at the White House at a briefing for the Office of Trafficking in Persons. And so meanwhile, I'm having my great grief, but I just figured if I can't have my own child, maybe I can go save someone else's. And out of my great denial season, we just decided to start doing something. And so we put together an organization. One of my girlfriends said, Lynette, you ought to do a stilettos run. I saw this thing in Europe about a stilettos run. I thought, yeah, maybe I could do a stilettos run and we'll raise money for our cause. And so I thought you all would enjoy seeing our example here. So, a year after we started, we decided we would do a stilettos run in New York City. Those are the women that were running. We broke the record for the number of people running in stilettos, the Guinness World Record. It was a rainy day, and the funny story is we knew we weren't going to have enough people for the run to break the record. So our then 16-year-old son was standing there. I said, Johnny, honey, put on a pair of stilettos. You are running in this run. He was all into it. So we had men, women. You can see some men in the picture. And they ran their hearts out. I wasn't about to run. I was not going to twist my ankle, but I cheered for them. And they ran. And then one of my dear, dear friends who used to work at Reuters in Times Square called and asked them if they would do a complimentary ad campaign for us. And so we ended up with our all of our identity logo and everything in Times Square, ran, I think it was about $200,000 worth of advertising they gave us. But through this process, amidst the denial, doing my other dream became the transfer gift. I don't know what denials you've been facing lately in your life, but I'm going to encourage you to dream big and dream forward, because dreams keep us moving. I don't yet have my own child. I probably will not in the natural sense, but I would not trade it for anything in the literal hundreds and hundreds of children we've been able to help through this cause. So I encourage you to do that. And by the way, Saks Fifth Avenue, I was telling the ladies this morning, Saks Fifth Avenue, who continues to be a great partner of mine, did an event a year and a half ago where they had me come in and do one of my talks. They gave all the proceeds from the day, that percentage, to our cause. And then at the end of the day, they said, you just go pick out a pair of stilettos that you want as payment for this event. And that's where I got these specific shoes that I'm wearing today. So many things take time, but they come around. The last D in the 3 Ds that we face when doing our dreams is what I call disasters. It's only logical that in an audience of this size, both here and those that are overseas and around the world. Some of us in this room are facing the greatest disasters that we could have ever imagined. Disasters are real, they happen. About 18 months ago, our third son, Jordan, was on a missions outreach trip to Tanzania in Africa in the summer with about 7 other young men. And while he was there, he had 7 nosebleeds, multiple days of nosebleeds. And actually, I take that back, 20 nosebleeds while he was there. And we thought he was fighting a sinus infection. We weren't sure what was going on. He came home at the end of the summer. And on the day before his 21st birthday, he was diagnosed with stage 4 sinus cancer. A tumor the size of a small fist was in the middle of his sinus cavity. It was already starting to eat away at the bones in his skull, was wrapped around both optic nerves. We pulled him out of school. He was going into his senior year of college. We rushed him home to UNC Chapel Hill, where one of the great surgeons for this particular kind of cancer happened to be there. We took him into surgery. They were only able to get 80% of the tumor. It was not looking good. 50% chance of death, high percentage of permanent brain damage, all kinds of things, permanent eye damage. They could only get 80% of the tumor, so they said, we're going to put him through aggressive treatment. Went through 71 rounds of radiation. Twice a day, that young man would get up, drive himself to the hospital, come back home, go to sleep, and drive himself back in the afternoon. 8 rounds of chemotherapy. Thousands of prayers. We're a praying family. We were praying. I mean, you know what it's like when you're going through disaster. You're hoping. So in December, he was taking classes. I was helping him with some of his online classes, and I said, Jordan, does this make me a homeschool mom? Maybe this makes me a homeschool mom, but we were working it. We were fighting for his life. Great disastrous time in our family. But I'm happy to say that in December, this was in the middle of his treatment, he was such a valiant soldier, never complained one time that as he was suffering just such horrendous pain and trauma. But I'm happy to say in December, when he went back in for his second surgery, the doctor came out. It was supposed to be a 4-hour surgery. The doctor came out after an hour and a half, and he said, he is totally cancer-free. It's amazing. And his eyes have returned 20/20. It's a total miracle. And when he went back in February to finish his senior year, he graduated on time. He and my soon-to-be daughter-in-law were crowned homecoming king and queen together. They were not even dating at this point. But disasters come and we persevere. You may be going through a tough time in your life right now. Keep persevering. Keep going. And that leads me to my final 3 thoughts of what does it really take to do what I'm talking about, to live our purpose and do our dreams. Well, it takes what I call the IPO. The first is innovation. We've been talking about that. Innovating, thinking creatively. Delays and denials and disasters, by the way, sometimes innovation is your lifeboat, and it'll keep you thinking and not giving up and trying something new. The second is simple perseverance, just deciding that I'm not going to quit. I learned, certainly in my journey towards marriage and in my personal life, that it's not a 5K, it's a marathon. Isn't that funny how we realize that so often as we grow older, that what we thought would happen quickly just takes longer? Life is a marathon. I titled the last chapter of my book, Different Than What I Thought, Better Than What I Imagined. Because isn't that how life is? The worst moments of our family have been the bonding moments, the time when we really became a family. When Jordan was suffering and other moments like that. We keep going, perseverance. And the last and maybe the most important thing is others. Our purpose statement will indicate what impact do we want to have on others, but taking others with us. Every dream needs a team. We cannot do it alone. I mean, it was all my girlfriends when I'd be calling for the 100th time after a bad blind date. When is it ever going to change? They're like, Tony was the first one. I didn't care how busy she was. She would just look at me and cry with me and cheer for me. I remember one day I said to her, it was in January one year, and I said, Tony, I'm just telling you, this has got to be my year. If this is not my year, I just can't wait another year. I'm just telling you, I'm at my wit's end. And she said, do you think you could wait 2 more weeks? I said, yeah, I probably could wait 2 more weeks. She said, then you just wait 2 more weeks. Now that was in my 20s. So 2 weeks at a time, I kept waiting. But we need each other, don't we? Don't you just need those people? Some of my best memories, my very best memories in my career have not been the projects or the paychecks, certainly, but it is the people, isn't it? Every person I still remember from way back when till now, people that we can stay in touch with now, and as Debbie was saying, still that great relationship she has with the CEO, that's what it's all about, and others make the difference. Right after I moved to New York, I'm a big runner. I love to run. I've never done a marathon. I hope to do that one day, but I wanted to go out and watch the New York City Marathon. Anybody in here ever run the New York City Marathon? Well, I'm sure it's one of the largest participatory events anywhere in the world, and I'm sure you've all seen it occasionally, but I decided I'm going to go out and watch the New York City Marathon. And so I went into Central Park all by myself. It's where all the runners come in at the end of the 26.3 miles. It's about the last 3/4 of a mile. They come into the park, and everybody lines up along the pathway to cheer for them. So I'm standing there amidst the hundreds and hundreds of people, and I'm watching the runners come in. It's so inspiring because they're every shape, every size, every age, every socioeconomic demographic. I mean, it is a mix of everybody. And it's so inspiring because what you would think everybody needs to look like to run a marathon is just simply not the case. And so they're coming through, and I look over and I see this sweet woman, and she's running, and she has her name, Pam, just like plastered across her t-shirt. And quite honestly, I kind of felt a little sorry for her. I was like, oh, you know, that's kind of hokey, putting your name across her t-shirt, you know, but she had it there, and she was like barely making it. And then not too far after her was coming this guy, and he was kind of disheveled looking, and he had his name on his shirt, Jerry, you know, right across the way. And I thought, oh, he's doing this. Maybe they came together. I don't know. They both got their name. Well, then, right as I was thinking that, I heard a woman next to me shout out and go, Pam, you're looking good. Keep going, Pam. And then over down the way, I heard him go Jerry, Jerry. I mean, they were cheering for it. And then I got it. See, Pam and Jerry woke up that morning, and they knew that they couldn't get there without all the other people cheering for them. That's why we're here today, isn't it? Because we're all cheering each other on. You know, if life's really a marathon and denials and delays and disasters come, but we want to be engaged and we want to be empowered and we want to innovate, then I propose to you that you and I can never do it unless we're cheering for each other. Cheering, calling out each other's names, knowing each other's names, knowing what's in your heart, so that when you're down, I can pick you up and call you and email you and say, how's that dream going? Are you making progress? What are you running up against? No big deal. You're going to get there. Texting you and telling you you're going to make it. And isn't that what it's all about? Isn't that what International Women's Day is all about? Pioneers who sometimes maybe was just their own inner voice telling them, I know your name, you can do it. But that's what it's all about. So I'm just going to simply close with that thought. Let's be in the marathon together. That's what it takes. I want to know your name. Thank you for listening to my stories today. And knowing my name, it means so much to do this race together. I propose to you that you are women and men on purpose, with a dream that has to be done and lived. And don't forget to take all of us with you, because we're calling out your name. I'm going to end with that.